going to be talking about dealing with criticism. And when you're on the top, or when you're a leader, or when you're a pastor, you got to learn how to deal with criticism. You got to learn how to deal with the haters.
Family, multiplication, restoration. I'm Dhati Lewis. Join me, Noah Oldham and Hayden Ratner, as we come to you from Atlanta, St. Louis, and Las Vegas, as we seek to add value to your church planting journey. We'll have real-time, authentic conversations that are relevant to the life of the church planter and pastor. Join us as we hear from leaders of this movement from across North America and discover what it really takes to plant churches everywhere for everyone.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of We Are Sin Network. I am one of your hosts, Dhati Lewis, and I am here now with fellow co-host Noah Oldham, and we got my man who doesn't have a good understanding of basketball. However, he used to play basketball. From Hayden Ratner. What's up, fellas?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Call me Playoff Hayden right now. That's where I'm at right now, Playoff H.
Yeah, you know, when I first started off this, I was just kind of like, man, this brother was asking me, for those of you guys, he was asking me if I know about Jamal Murray. And I was like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but it's just kind of like, I know it's not real. So by the time you guys have seen this, the Lakers have probably already either won the series, swept the series, or like, so I don't even know what's happening. But, you know, Hayden, I'll let you kind of have your moment, because at this point, no one hasn't even played a game yet. The first game is tonight.
That's right. Let's get it. Come on, go Nuggets. I'm not even a Nuggets fan. All right. Well, all right.
You are Laker haters. That's the problem. But you know what I'm saying? When you're on the top, this is one of the things you get hard. And that's really sad, because the Lakers haven't been on the top for 10 years. Like, and you still got that hatred, and it runs that deep. But that's actually what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, man.
We're going to be talking about dealing with criticism. And when you're on the top, or when you're a leader, or when you're a pastor, you got to learn how to deal with criticism. You got to learn how to deal with the haters. You know, and that's kind of where we are. But before we jump in, again, if you're here for the first time, this is the new kind of format. I'm here with Hayden, with Noah. So again, give us like a little bit of just a quick introduction. Remind us who you are, what you're doing for everybody out there.
Hey, Hayden, you first. Be before age.
All right. Yeah, man. Hayden Ratner here, lead pastor of Walk Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. I always say it, not the city of sin, but the city of him. He's doing great work out here. And I'm leaning into this podcast with Dr. Dhati Lewis. Don't miss it. And Pastor Noah. No, we're not there yet. We got some leveling to do. But yeah, I'm as a church planter who very much is in those seasons. I need to learn. I need content. I need help. I need encouragement. I need to feel like I'm not by myself in this. And that's one of the reasons why this podcast exists, is to really add value to planters and pastors and team members in their season. And that's where I'm at. So I'm praying that I can speak to that and also learn some at the time as well.
And that's good. And I'm Noah Oldham, lead pastor of August Gate Church in the St. Louis metro area. And I get to serve as the senior director of Deploy for the North American Mission Board with Send Network. And man, I'm excited about this podcast more and more, because God has given me about 11 years of experience in the planting, active planting, and 13 in the whole process. And though things haven't always looked the way I thought they would look, the Lord has taught me a lot. I think one of the reasons he allowed me to go through so many things is so I could help other planters go through them better than I did. So excited for this to be a podcast that does that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited here to be with you guys, and also just in the midst of kind of all of what's going on. I love the fact that we're going to get like threefold wisdom from all different perspectives, you know, from people we planted 10 years ago, we planted multi-site, we've single church. I mean, all the different varieties that's coming on right here. We're going to come up with true, real perspective. And like Hayden said, like our goal is that we want to be a value add to this thing. And then if we're not a value add, please let us know. But we know that we are, because like we're in the trenches, like you're in the trenches. And so we just want to see what God is doing. So Hayden, why don't you tell us, like, why are we here? What are we talking about? Why are we here today?
Yeah, you know, you kicked it off well, coming off of the Lakers Nuggets illustration, that, hey, when you're leading, when you're especially in the season of church planting, there's always haters, but not only just haters, but there's always people that tend to have the spiritual gift of criticism, which is not, it's a lowercase s spiritual gift, a critical spirit. And so I don't know if you're listening and watching this and you're like us, but maybe you've had people on your team, in your church, in the city that are criticizing the work you've done. I met with a brother in our city just recently at a coffee shop, and he said, "Hey, so what are you up to today?" And I said, "Man, I'm just putting in some work, doing a variety of things." He goes, "Come on, man, you only work one day a week." And I was like, "Bruh, not funny. Stop that."
I love the questions when people come to me and say, "So what do you do like every other day?" You know, and they don't say it that explicit that they said with you, but that's pretty much what they're saying. Like, like what do you do the rest of the week?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
you know,
I know folks are being funny. I know folks are trying to be funny, and that's a huge part of this conversation, right? Let's just break the ice there, guys. I would love to hear from each of you. What is the silliest criticism that you have heard in ministry thus far? What's a story that you got?
Well, I'm gonna say it's a silly one, but it's a sad one for me. I remember, man, I was on and I was out preaching, like, and you know, it's one of those things. And I'm talking about, like, the sermon was on contextualization, and I'm like, man, I'm getting in. I'm talking about we need to be able to contextualize the gospel, and and I'm just getting in, and I'm like passionate. And this is one of those passions, like I'm talking to a group of pastors and their wives for like an hour and a half. I'm just pouring out my heart. So at the end, I'm like, all right, so what questions do you have? Let's get it. Like, I'm ready. Let's get into it. And, you know, and I'm thinking that we're about to get us some deep stuff. The first, hey, excuse me. Can you wear earrings, you know, and be a Christian? And I was like, what? You know, and again, I know you guys, like I was young. I used to have my earrings. I had my hoops, my studs, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta show you some college pictures one day. But, you know, I was in it and I was getting it. And that was the question. And literally, I tried to kind of say, yeah, and then kind of move on about, you know, tying it in. But literally for the next hour, we were talking about how you cannot wear earrings and be a Christian. And I was just like, man, forget it. You know, and after about an hour of arguing with them, I just finally said, let me just take these off. And, you know, and that was really one of the things. It wasn't that day, but that was one of the catalysts for me. That's why I don't wear earrings today. I still got the holes. I can go pop them in right now because I've had them since I was 12. I had my earrings on since I was 12. So anyway, that was the silliest thing that I've ever had.
And there's a sermon illustration in there somewhere. Hayden, what about you, man? You ever have some silly, funny, sad criticism?
Oh, man. Yeah, I feel like I've had a wide range, especially being in Las Vegas and trying to reach a lot of unchurched people. I feel like the criticisms come from a variety of different ways. But I was just thinking of one that this was kind of like silly, I thought was silly, and at the same time kind of discouraging. But a brother was coming to our church. He wanted to link up because he had some stuff heavy on his heart. And when we linked up, he goes, man, I just really got an issue. I feel like we're reaching too many lost people. And like, you know, you're preaching messages that, you know, are like, you know, we need to go deeper. And I'm like, bruh, like I thought this past message was deep. And man, he goes, dude, you know, are you trying to like reach lost people? I'm like, you know, yeah, like absolutely. And you know, I said, man, sometimes when you go deep, people drown. And so we're trying to have a balance throughout the sermon. And I think that'll be a good podcast on preaching and the art of preaching, the task of preaching, and what is deep and what is shallow and how to keep the gospel in the center. But that's not this topic. But I thought that was kind of some silly criticism there. And sometimes you even here's another podcast topic. Sometimes you got to tell people, man, this might be the right church for you. Yeah. It's quick to get there, but sometimes when it comes to shaping culture, that's something you got to deal with.
Absolutely right, man. Yeah, the silliest criticism I feel like I've ever gotten is similar to that, Hayden. And I had this guy that kept buying me books like by certain authors and preachers that are real, like holiness, hellfire, and brimstone. And I'm like, what is he giving me a hint? What's going on here? And finally, he wanted to sit down and talk with me. This is the dude I had poured in my preaching lab and discipleship, been in small group with. And he finally just had to meet with me. He and his wife have been talking. He and other people in the church have been talking. He said, you've only got one sermon, Noah. Like, man, I just preached through like 7 or 8 books of the Bible at this point since you've been in the church. What are you talking about? He said, it's the Great Commission. That's all you ever preach. Every week we come back to be disciples and go make disciples. And I just kind of laughed at him. I thought I was being punked. Ashton Kutcher was going to jump out of the closet at any moment. And I said, so I just had the wherewithal in that moment to say, well, are you doing it yet? Are you obeying it? He said, well, no, not yet. I said, well, I'm going to keep preaching it until you do. He left our church pretty soon after that. Because he just wasn't a church. Our church wasn't the church for him if he didn't want to be about the Great Commission. So, man, that's, there's silly criticism, but then there's also the really, really hard criticism. If you guys are willing to share, because we have planters and pastors that are listening that are enduring very, very hard seasons right now and probably enduring some of the most heavy criticism they've ever endured before. What's some of the hard criticism that you have experienced and what's that done to your soul?
I mean, one of the things, I was just kind of like, as I was reflecting, like some of the hardest thing, I was like, what happened yesterday, right? I mean, it's literally like we are in the midst of this pastors that are in the midst of this season, dealing with so much hardship, so many heartache, so many criticisms. Do we go back to service? Do we not go back to service? And it's all these things. And so, like literally, I'm just being blatantly honest with you guys. Yesterday, I'm literally crying on my wife's shoulder, just broken. Like I'm so lonely. I'm so hurt. I'm so angry. Like this, all of these things, and literally, I'm just kind of like, and it's because like I'm constantly getting texts. I'm constantly being told you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So it's like, wow. It to me, is it just one criticism, or is it simply it is kind of the barrage of criticism that I'm constantly getting. And here I am, I'm trying to burn the candle at both ends. I'm not only am I like, I'm going to, I got to minister to people who want to be in live service in person, and I got to minister to the people online. I got to also minister, still be neighborly. Like, it's like I'm doing double the work, double the things, and I'm still feeling criticism. And this is like, man, many times I was like, forget it. Like one time, like I was just like, I received some criticism, from a staff member. And I was just like, I literally got up, and it was in an email form. I got up, read the email, and I packed my stuff and I'll pack my stuff up, and I was about to walk away. And I was like, I'm never coming back. I mean, that's the mindset that I had, So when you talk about kind of most difficult, it's not about like someone said something really like deep to me. I'm just kind of like, man, sometimes when I'm just in a vulnerable place and I'm needing encouragement, and I get another email or another text about what I'm not doing, and just like those wrong timely placed things really get to the core.
That's real. Yeah, Dhati, I mean, I reached out to you yesterday in a text message because I'm just on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I probably, shouldn't be, because sometimes it's just it's chaos there. But I saw somebody like throwing shade at you for just trying to shepherd your people. I mean, over the last several months, you've been making these videos to shepherd your own people, and somebody took one of those videos and put it out there and was sharing it as a reason to attack Send Network. And I just like, man, like I can't even imagine, bro. And so criticism from every direction, dude. That's real. It's real. Yeah. What about you, Hayden, man? What are you experiencing in this season, or what have you experienced? Really, really hard criticism.
Question. Yeah, there's definitely been a handful of criticism in this season, and Dhati, you hit it right on the head. With in person, line, etc. And totally get it. When you asked that question, though, my mind and my heart drifted just early on in our church planting season, before we even launched our church publicly. We started a Bible study, and we started in kind of the apartment Nina and I were living in at the time. It outgrew the apartment, and then we moved it into our sending churches, had a family ministries room, started really growing there, about 70, 80 people. And the leadership of our sending church called me into the office and just said, hey, we love you enough to ask you to shut the Bible study down. And I just remember feeling like, time out, bro. Like, were you there last night? Because we got momentum and there's energy. People are getting saved. And this is how you plant a church, right? Like, you got to grow this thing and a church evolves. And they had enough wisdom and insight and experience to be able to say, hey, we get it. We believe it. We think you'll get it again, but for your soul and for your marriage and for the purpose of disciple making, we encourage you and are asking you to push pause on the big group to identify a smaller group to invest in and just start discipling and raising up leaders. Because at the time, it seemed like it was just Nina and I in this big group, and it was just about to just fall on us. And we just weren't ready for that. We didn't have a base of leaders. And so I still look back at that time, leaving that meeting, feeling discouraged, feeling like, man, they're not for me. They don't get it. They don't see it. But having enough honesty and enough humility, if you would, to still say, okay, we're going to follow your lead. And we look back and say, man, that was the best criticism, though it was hardest, that we received in our planting journey, because we were more healthy for it and stronger because of it.
It's good. It's good.
That's a good word.
Guys, I think one of the hardest things about criticism I've experienced, and as I work with church planters all across North America now, the kind of criticism that they experience that's the hardest is stuff they can't do anything about. The criticism about a planter's wife, of a pastor's wife, or their kids. Hey, your wife isn't this enough. Your wife isn't around enough for this. Your wife isn't this to me. You guys know, like, we have a limited amount of time, and our wives may have even less time than we do, because they're often running things in our family and keeping things afloat so we can do the ministry God's called us to do. And the ministry they are doing is the most valuable, and it usually is beyond their margin. But so that criticism of your wife, criticism of your kids, I don't know about you guys, but criticism of my preaching is an extension of me. It's a really cool opportunity that I've had that with my role, like I preach for free for my church every week. Like, no one pays me. And so it's a freedom thing that I don't have to be afraid of, like, losing my job, not getting paid to preach. But when somebody criticized me after giving 15 hours of work beyond my normal work week to preach, and then it's just these little criticisms that don't matter. Oh, it eats at my soul. And Dhati, it's much like you said, it's like, do I just pack this thing up and go? And I've heard that story a number of times from planters. So I think this is a critical piece, like, to us to turn the page and say, so what do we do? Like, how do we battle through the criticism? How do we respond to it? Even how do we redeem the criticism?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think the natural thing is to turn yourself into a victim, right? I know that's something I do, is just like, I'll become a victim of criticism, right? And then it'd be, this was like what the first Adam did. It's the woman you gave me. It's the environment you gave me. It's the congregation you gave me. I think we have our initial kind of knee-jerk reaction is to escape the pain. And that's kind of what I said, like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to escape the pain, right? And that's just the knee-jerk reaction. And then when you feel pain, you got to begin to identify the pain, right? Like, and then you create the source of the pain, and then you got to, give, like, blame at the feet of the pain, right? And so, like, I think you got to get out of that performance trap, because, and I say performance trap because of the fact that a lot of times it's like, if you get to the criticism, it's all about some type of performance, but really it's really not about, it's more of a value thing. And that time is where we got to go back to the gospel and say, like, we have value. So first of all, let me take this criticism not as an attack, on me, even if it is an attack on me, and basically being able to walk through that, because in every criticism, there is a kernel of truth. Because if it was just outlandish, then it wouldn't even, like, it would be like, it wouldn't even bother me. Like, if they were saying, Dhati, why are you flying? Right? I wouldn't be like, what do you mean? Like, I've never, like, I can't float. I can't fly. Like, is this like, that's the craziest thing you think about. So I just think that we got to not take things personally, right? We got to understand and find our identity in Christ. And, and we really, really got to just, like, understand that, because the bottom line is that it's not if, but it's when you have criticism.
It's good.
Dhati, you just said something I think is super important. I'd love, Hayden, if you'd speak into this a little bit, because you're, like, in the first 5 years, you're experiencing a lot of the early criticism that so many of our listeners are going to are going to experience. He used this phrase, Dhati, we find avenues to escape the criticism. Hayden, what are some of the dangerous avenues that church planters are going to be tempted to escape the criticism within?
Yeah, man, I think some of the dangerous avenues are to isolate yourself. Yeah. I was just reading in the proverb today, Proverbs chapter 18, whenever that is for you, but check out Proverbs 18. Just in those first couple verses, it says that the foolish person isolates themselves and breaks out against sound judgment. And, the wise person is heeding instruction. The wise person is heeding counsel. And so I think that there's danger in isolating and just kind of saying, okay, and then because what happens is you get that replay tape from the enemy where you fester on the criticism. You don't have a process and it begins to eat you up. I think some other ways that are dangerous is you respond with the same thing that was done to you, right? So instead, I'm criticized, let me criticize you, right? Instead of receiving and actually taking some space to think. I think another dangerous thing is, okay, you criticize me, well, I'm going to go find other people and I'm going to just talk bad about you or just slander or gossip. And so I think that criticism is so tricky. And I think that's one of the reasons why the enemy loves it and God hates it, right? Proverbs 6, God says he hates when somebody sows discord amongst brothers, sisters. And so I think that this is a big topic. So that I think there's dangers. And then there's also things to respond to criticism, I would say, that are helpful. One thing that I've been doing, this may sound kind of wild, but as people have been bringing criticism my way and it's becoming more and more frequent, I've actually just started to lean into it. Like somebody has something critical to speak about, either preaching or ministry, philosophy, etc., even family. I just start leaning into it like, ooh, dang, okay, let me think about that. Okay, wow. Help me see it clearer. And I'll tell you what, for some reason, it just messes people when they're given those critical words. It's almost like they were ready to pull the guns out to go to it. Let me just lean into this thing. Let me even honor you for criticizing me. And there's something about that's not easy to do. I don't always do it, but that's one of the things I've been trying to do better. And it creates for just a more conversation that I think could lead to a win instead of a loss. But that's kind of where I've been at lately.
Man, one of the dangers I've seen again and again, I know for my own soul and I know for other planters and pastors, is that escapism. You're looking for something to comfort you in the midst of criticism. You guys, I bet there's something real about this for most men, especially men that are in our roles as lead pastors and planters, is that one of our love languages is words of affirmation. I raise both my hands on that. I need those words of affirmation. And during seasons of criticism, if I'm not getting affirmation from the right places, I know that my soul wants to wander to find that. And I've watched a number of guys wander into unhealthy relationships, specifically with women in their church, because you're this fatherly figure, you preach, you pour out, and some people see that and they want to just say thank you. And if you are hungry for affirmation and you're dealing with criticism, the enemy will say, look, you're getting it over here. This person really cares about you. And I've watched too many guys wander in inappropriate relationships. It started with responding to a text message that was it was affirming. So I just want to challenge and encourage my brothers, like Dhati said, find that affirmation in the gospel. It's not that you need to run from criticism. You need to run to the affirmation that you have in Jesus and begin there.
Right, and I think this what you're saying, I think is spot on. And there's a couple of things that just kind of resonates with me. One, just reminded of, one of them is just simply COVID, the racial tensions, the political, all these things. Like, pastors are in a very vulnerable place right now. I mean, I think what they said, the research that just came out says 7 or 8 out of 10 pastors are seriously considering quitting right now. I've met with planters that literally they just started, gathering in November of last year. And now COVID hit and they're they don't even know if they have a congregation. They don't know what to go back to, right? And it's just just understanding like all of our insecurities, like what am I doing here? All the insecurities that come right now, like we're in a vulnerable place. And I just want to just like make sure that as a pastor out there that you guys know, like we're here for you. Like we're better together than apart, and like and being able to do it. So I just think that that's one. The other thing that I wanted to say is simply that all criticism is not created equal. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that all criticism is not created equal, because like in the very essence of criticism, you would think that like it's bad, it's hard, like I don't, and I think I would like to differentiate the difference between criticism and just good, helpful kind of challenge, in a sense, is this idea of speaking the truth in love. Because if someone speaks the truth in love to me, it may hurt me, but it's for the benefit of my soul, it's for the benefit of God. And so like even what Hayden said earlier in his example, it was just like they were speaking the truth in love. Even if he disagrees, it was like it was to speak the truth in love, and it hurt him. But it was for the greater good.
True.
But then the other side of it is, and that's what I said, like criticism, like is when people come in and they have more of a harmful, like they're just trying to get stuff off their chest. I just need to make things clear. Let me just keep it real. However they say it, right? And then it's like, and every time someone say, let's keep it real, it's always the bad side. Like, it's never like godly keep it real. It's always like, I got some stuff to say. I got some stuff to say, right? And I think that is, like, it is always really, really hard. And so whenever you receive criticism that is its aim is to harm you, I really believe that, like, to the best that you can, you got to shake the dust off your feet. You got to move on. You got to mourn. You got to grieve. You got to, the hurt, because if we don't, we will harden our hearts. We will harden our hearts. But whenever there's people that are speaking the truth in love, and they really are doing it for the glory of God and for his kingdom, and it may hurt you, I just think that's a completely different thing. So ultimately what I'm saying is all criticism is not created equal, and we have to understand that and differentiate between speaking the truth in love and people who are trying to harm.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I know we're coming to the end of our time here, but I want to offer a resource for planters and pastors to grab a hold of. It's one of the resources that's helped me since I started in ministry in my early 20s. It's called Dealing with the Rejection and Praise of Man by Bob Sorge. It's a book that's only about 75 pages long. You can read it on one plane ride, but it helps us to deal with the praise and rejection, because the other side of criticism is we then teach ourselves, train ourselves to need affirmation from men all the time, which can be equally as unhelpful as dealing with criticism in a wrong way.
Yeah. No, I wanted to recommend one more book if I could, and it's the Book of Proverbs. Would encourage all pastors, planters, leaders to identify whatever day of the month that you're watching this or listening to this, that's your sign from the Lord to read the proverb of the day. I was just reading the proverb of today, and it spoke to me. It said, a wise person seeks understanding, but a foolish person only wants to share their own opinion. I don't know. I've felt so much correction from the proverb. It's helping me grow. I'm starting to think through Proverbs, decision-making, what I say, what I don't say. And so I think that could help the criticizer and the person who is receiving the criticism. And a final word that I would just say on this podcast is, I want to just go ahead and let me just keep it real quick, but I want to do it in an opposite way of what Dhati just said. I want to keep it real by honoring my brother, Dhati Lewis, on this call right now. It's making them feel awkward, but I'm going to do it anyway. I know that you received some criticism just yesterday that's made you feel challenged and burdened, and you're talking about it with your wife, Pastor Dr. Dhati Lewis. You are a kingdom leader. You're an honoring leader. You're a pastor to a whole group of pastors. You're a church planter. You have prophetic apostolic vision, and God is using you not just amongst people in Atlanta, but amongst me in Las Vegas and St. Louis and California and globally. And so, brother, be encouraged through the screen right now, and don't stop what you're doing. Level it up. Go ahead and tap in, double down, throw it in. Lakers, it's playoff Dhati. Come on. Let's go.
Man, amen. Well, man, brother, I really do appreciate it. And, I appreciate both of you. And Noah sent me a text yesterday. He didn't know anything. And just and you today, all of us, the network as a whole, y'all, man, I just want you guys to stay in, press in.
Yeah.
We need to surround ourselves with brothers that's going to encourage us. I was about to say, man, Hayden one-upped you, Noah, with the book recommendations.
He did.
Let me go to the Bible. But, then I was like, that was awkward, but I said it still anyway. But, I do. No, I really do. I really love you, brothers. I really do appreciate you. And we love you guys at Sin Network. And so we're excited. This is another episode of We Are Sin Network. Hopefully you're enjoying it. And there's going to be much more to come of this real, honest conversation where we just really want to add value to you. Right. So, again, if you are interested in church planning, please check us out. Text SEND Network to 888-123. Again, send 2 words, network, to 888-123. And thank you guys again for another episode of We Are Sin Network.
You have been listening to We Are Sin Network, a resource of the North American Mission Board. For more information about today's podcast and other relevant resources, visit sendnetwork.com.